Welcome to Foglight Skills 101. We're kicking off an exciting new three-part series hosted by Quest expert Clay Jackson. Clay is not only a seasoned professional with SharePlex, but also a pro with Foglight, and he's here to make understanding REST APIs simple and approachable. Today, we'll start by exploring what REST APIs are all about, and in the next episode, we'll take a deeper dive. Trust me, you won't want to miss this series. It's packed with valuable insights that will boost your skills. So grab a coffee and let's jump right in.
Hello, everyone, and thanks, Jessica, for that introduction. As Jessica said, my name is Clay Jackson. I'm a solutions architect here at Quest, and I'll be talking today about the Foglight REST API and exploring the functionality built into that. So let's go ahead and get started. A little bit about me. I've been a senior pre-sales engineer here at Quest for a little over 12 years now. I've got a master's degree in software engineering. Before I was at Quest, I spent a couple of years on the Quest Customer Advisory Board and 25 years as a DBA and DBA manager, and also a little telecom startup. I was a software development manager for a while and got to play around at Microsoft for a while. And then also I contribute to open source systems in one way or another. So I've had a little bit of experience and a lot of background in these things. You can see my LinkedIn profile there if you want to follow me. Talk a little bit here about introductions. We just did talk about why REST for Foglight, why REST is important, and then give you a quick overview of the API and then a short demo on exactly what you can do with the API. So let's go ahead and get started. So why REST for Foglight? REST, of course, is a reusable state system that lets you make API calls and lets you do HTTP calls into another system and get back data. So it's a logical extension of Foglight. We can use that then to get data out of Foglight and process it in all sorts of other languages, Java, Perl, Ruby, Python. I'm using Python in my examples, but you can use any of those languages there to do anything you want. It's self-defined data. The data is going to come back in JSON or XML. It's external to Foglight, so you've got less overhead, and you can put it in lots of other systems that Foglight won't run on. For example, you could build a little REST API, and we've had users build REST APIs to in Java to talk to mobile phones. Put an alarm or a set of alerts on your mobile phone. Extend Foglight in that way. It's not groovy. You don't have to learn a brand new language to be able to do it. You learn HTML and some simple HTTP calls, and then whatever language you're comfortable in without having to learn Groovy and deal with the Groovies. And it's machine independent, as we already talked about. So a little quick overview about using the REST API in Foglight and how we are going to go through that. It's Foglight 5.7 or later. You need to make sure you're on the latest version of Foglight. Core functions are going to be get, post, and delete. You manage topology objects that way by getting the object, posting to it, looking at it, or deleting it. We do require login and authentication. That's handled through a token for secure interactions. You're perfectly secure. Going through that, you get a token, and then you use that token to do your access and log in. And you also have to have permission granted to you, your Foglight user, by the administrative user. So not everyone can access the REST API just out of the box. And you can also do things like restrict it to certain terminals and all sorts of things like that. So lots of security options available to you for using the REST API. Now, you always want to make sure you refer to the API documentation specific to your version. We do change the API from time to time, add functionality, change some functionality. For example, in Foglight 6, we changed from one type of token to another that makes it more compatible with the later versions of things like Python and some of the other things out there that are using different token technology than we did in the past. So that kind of thing can come up. And so make sure you always look at the correct documentation. quick application overview. You can get your application information and then go from there. You're going to get version, deployment status, configuration, and then you can use that to look at workflows and troubleshooting and system audits and things like that. Security we talked about, and user getting the current information available about the user. Find out which user you are. You can code your APIs to or API calls to restrict certain access to only certain users or certain times a day, or really anything you want once you've got that based on that. So it gets you the information about the user. You can also do some agent management things. Look at the agent by agent ID, list all the active agents in Foglight, get all the agents in the system, find any inactive agents if you want to do an alarm or something like that. If one of your agents isn't running, you want to find out what that is and send an alarm to some external process. You can do that, ServiceNow or NetData or something else like that you might have monitoring your system. We can also start and stop agents and remove agents, so you can do that as well. Can't add an agent yet. That you have to do in the Foglight GUI, but once you've added the agent, you can start and stop it. You can black it out. One of the typical things our customers are doing for the API is if you want to, you're running a backup script, right? You want to black out your agent during a backup script because your data is not going to be available. So you make an API call that says, stop this agent. You stop it during the backup, restart it after the backup, and nobody knows any different. That way your backup scheduler controls when you're stopping and starting the agent. You don't have to write a Foglight schedule and have the chance that they're going to be out of sync or something like that. So it's another useful thing for the API in addition to what I'm going to show you here. Alarm management. This is the important part for APIs. You can acknowledge an alarm. You can clear an alarm. You can retrieve the alarms. You can get alarms. All that's by rule ID or by alarm ID, so you have to know that ahead of time, but you can query those and find those. You can list all the current alarms. Show me a list of all of the current alarms in the system, or show me a list of all the alarms that are greater than warning, or any thing on that. You can look at that and then use that. I have that, and again, I use that for another Foglight function that displays my current system state on a little LED board I have. So I've got a green, yellow, orange, and red, and I have just a couple of LEDs that display the status of all my systems around my house, and that way I can see what I've got. I actually use Foglight to monitor my system around my house. I live on a farm, so I've got irrigation systems and some other things I need to look at, and I monitor my irrigation systems with Foglight to make sure they're running and that everything is happening quickly. And we can talk about that in some more detail and maybe show that in another release. You can also get access to historical alarms. Look at the alarms for a particular object. You want to see all the alarms for one particular set of objects. You can get the historical alarms for that. You can create a new alarm. You can send an alarm. So if you want to do something outside of Foglight and send an alarm into Foglight, you can do that. You can say, hey, I've got this alarm that just happened and I want to send it to Foglight. And you can filter alarms based on any sorts of criteria you want. And all these are individual APIs that we'll show you later and talk about later, and are documented. All the APIs are actually documented. So with that, let's move into a little bit of a demo and get that going here. Now, my use case for this is actually pretty simple. Not much to it. I have a backup system that is not by Quest, because I do some things that the Quest backup soft solution won't do, based on backing up IoT devices primarily. But I want to make sure I keep track of that, and I want to make sure that all my hosts are being backed up, and that I don't have a backup that's out of date. So I built a topology object that tracks my backups and associates with my Foglight hosts. I built a little Python script that collects the data. That's my agent, if you will. And I send the data, and then I built some alerting on top of that. So let's go ahead and get started with the demo here. I've brought up my Foglight screen, and you can see I have a bunch of alarms that are complaining about last backup and the fact that I have systems that weren't backed up for a while. These are generated by that agent I was talking about, and we'll cover that in a few minutes. But let's look here just at the Foglight screen for a minute, and we'll show you what's going on here. And see, I've got my instances here where I say the host name, and then it's coming from the N7QNM last backup, and the origin is a status here. If I drill down into this over here, we'll see a little more information about this. I can see, my last backup was 1.08 days old. I've got a little bug there. I've got to fix in the message, and I get a history for when it happened, and it tells me where my source is here and what the condition variables are and so on that I need to look at if I want to do something with that. And it's got the rule. Let's go ahead and edit the backup rule, and I'll show you how that looks. Rule definition is very simple here. I say it's a last backup status, and there's my agent that is doing that. My conditions and actions are very simple. Let's look at the warning action because that's the one that's actually open right now. And if we go to a condition here, just a little bit of groovy code. I look at the incremental date time in my backup. If it's greater than the full date time, I use that. Otherwise, I use the full date time, and I compare that to the current system time in milliseconds. My backup utility reports its time in Unix timestamp, so it's a big long number that represents the number of seconds since 1970, which is when Unix got its start. So that's what that's all about. And I throw an alarm if I get something there. So now let's go look at some of the code. Okay, so here's my actual Foglight server and the code I've got. My code is written in Python, so I've got a virtual environment set up to do that. And let's look first and very quickly at the backup PC metrics.xml. That's my XML file that determines where everything goes in my topology. So we'll show you that first. Pretty simple, really. I've got a name and a type, and then I associate that name and type. This type host here associates that with the host name, so I know what host is, and then I get some metrics that are the full duration, the full time, full size, the full date time, and the incremental date time and the duration. We'll talk more about that in the next session when we talk about Foglight topology, but that's basically how we get the data into Foglight. Okay, here we are at the bottom of the screen. I've got my main program here, which is this piece. So I'm going to connect to Foglight, get my metrics, and then move them to Foglight. It's just a question of putting the data into a JSON string and then moving it along the way to Foglight. So really not that much to it in terms of getting things there. And once you've got a script, and all these scripts, by the way, will be available in the our Git environment and after the presentation, so you can take a look at these and see what they look like. Let's go back up here again to Foglight and my rule editor. I can also look at the agent and the data that's coming in. I'll go to the Foglight script console here. Let's do it this way. N7QNM, if I put that in there, let's see. Here's my N7QNM last backup, and I list my instances. And you can see, as we talked about earlier, I have one instance of the objects for each of my servers. Let's look at my EMQX server here, and here's my data objects. And if I scroll down a little bit, these are all the things that I'm collecting in the domain. Most of these things come with Foglight. You just tell it to collect data, and you get that. So here's my incremental date time. Last time my incremental backup was taken. That's an observed. I've got an observed value there, and that's the timestamp I was talking about. That tells what's going on. Now, one more thing I can do. I'll go over to my backup program. Go in here and look at my status and see when the last time things were backed up. Go to my host summary here, and you see I've got some issues with some of these that haven't been backed up for a while, and I can go take backups. Here's one that hasn't had a backup for a little bit, so we'll go ahead and start a backup on that. And it looks like an incremental I want to start, so start incremental backup. Go to my home page, make sure it's backing up, go back to status, and that incremental backup should not take a very long time. And now if I go back to run my backup PC metrics, normally it only runs, oh, I can't run it that way. That's right, I have to run it the wrong way. I have this running out of cron tab for people that are Unix literate here. We can see it, and if I take this little script here and run it, you see it doesn't take very long to run. Now I'll go back to my Foglight screen and back to alarms, and now you can see solar water is no longer on my list of machines with that need to have backups taken. So we cleared that alarm, and I can go through and clear the other alarms as well. So that's a demonstration of some of the things you can do with REST API and the scripting with Foglight. As I mentioned earlier, I use it also for monitoring my solar water system. For example, I have a solar water system on top of my house, and I need to make sure it doesn't freeze. There's some things there to do that, but I have Foglight set up on a temperature sensor so that if I get below 40 degrees, it sends me an email and sends me an alert and says, hey, your solar water system is in danger of freezing. You can look at that. I also monitor my irrigation status, make sure my irrigation pump is running, and if it stops, I get a message about that as well. So again, lots of things you can do with Foglight in the real world, and monitoring using the REST API. And some closing thoughts here. This is an application programming interface, okay? You're writing applications, you're writing a program. So software engineering principles apply. You want to do error handling, you want to deal with no data. Make your code modular, do one thing and one thing only, and maybe take a look at microservices. This is a great way to do microservices. Back on the code page for just a minute, I'll show you some of the things I do to make this a little more robust. You can see I've got syslog set up here, so I'm logging my warnings. Maybe, as with any good program, most of it is error handling and very little actual setting up the data and making the data work. So, and this source code is available if you want to look at it, and we can send it to you, or it's available on our GitHub site, so you can take a look at it and use it as an example. You're not going to break Foglight, okay? Nothing you do with the API is really going to cause Foglight to crash. You might cause some problems with a particular alarm or the particular topology object you're manipulating, but you're not going to break Foglight, so you can go ahead and do whatever you need to do and test it. Do that, of course, always test in a development environment. Your application is your responsibility. We do have services available. If you need to have services help you write an application or help you debug an application, they can do that for you, but it's going to be primarily your responsibility to work with. And in general, just have fun with the API. There's all sorts of nice things you can do with it. I mentioned a couple that I'm doing: my backup age, keeping track of my irrigation system, making sure things are running, making sure I have enough water being put on my hay, the crop I grow. So things you can do there. Some resources, and again, these will be on the website and available to you, but we've got the Foglight homepage, of course, GitHub functionality talking about using Postman for testing. We got Linux shell samples, we've got Python sample code, we've got Java sample code, Go sample code, and the REST API reference. And again, I can't emphasize enough, make sure you use the reference there for the version of Foglight that you're using. And when you get a new version of Foglight, check your API reference and make sure that things aren't going to be messed up. And That really concludes the presentation. If you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. And then finally, here's an RSVP for the second part of that, and extending the Foglight topology using the REST API, extending the topology. We'll talk about the topology objects and how you actually build those and set those up. So that's what this is all about. And thank you all for attending and listening, and hope you have a great rest of your day.